Hello everyone, LunarDave here. So, Halo Infinite has been out for over a week now, and I'd like to give my thoughts / opinions on the game's campaign. But, before I get into the thick of things, only 4.9% of my audience is actually subscribed, and we gotta fix that. So be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. Also, leaving a comment after this video would be pretty epic. Alright, without further ado, let's get right into this. I should probably start with the fact that Halo Infinite is the very first Halo game I've ever played at launch. Most of my Halo experience was from Halo MCC. There, I've played Halo 1 through 4 and Reach, but I actually haven't played ODST yet, but I do plan on it. So, that should give you a general idea of what my experience on Halo is like. So, finally being able to experience the launch of a new Halo game was a new and exciting feeling for me. After being a bit disappointed with how Halo 4 played out, along with me skipping 5 since it looked like it just doubled down on what stuff I didn't like, and also backtracked on decisions I was perfectly fine with. So 343 simply just didn't exactly give me too much optimism, at least for the initial announcement of Infinite. But after seeing that 2019 trailer, which still looks a lot better than the final build of Infinite, specifically with lighting in dark areas, 343 what the heck, along with the 2020 demo build's gameplay, I was quickly on board. So, let's see if Infinite blows me away or disappoints. I think I should start on what I get very nitpicky with Halo on, and that is the campaign's gameplay. Something about 343's gameplay with Halo didn't really feel like, well, Halo. And my very, very brief experience with Halo 5's multiplayer didn't do me any favors. Equipment felt either unnatural or very stiff to use, sprinting was a bit lame and really only made maps bigger and had enemies hitting much harder to compensate. In all fairness, I think even Bungie didn't do a good job with them in 3 and Reach. So this is actually a general Halo issue for me. With the 343 maps though, a lot of them felt way too linear, or it was like on autopilot, and while that can benefit some experiences, like the Ghost run in Halo 4, the base experience just wasn't interesting enough to make me go, wow. So how does Halo address a lot of these issues for me? Well, they took a lot of those issues I had and basically flipped them over to make something excellent. Sprinting? Well, it wasn't made specifically for just a quick and easy speed boost, and is more so made to expand on other mechanics, such as sliding and equipment. With equipment itself, the grapple shot itself feels supernatural, and it's as though it was always meant for Halo's sandbox. A lot of the other equipment are mostly standard affairs such as drop shields, thrusters, and threat sensors, but when used in tandem, it creates amazing physics results with the engine, which really speaks to me. Well, now you have significantly smaller indoor maps, and big outdoor open world maps where combat can be in smaller sections in those big maps. It's a take on Halo I think is the perfect balance of respecting Halo's original trilogy while still creating new experiences out of them that the originals simply didn't offer. I actually never dislike what 343 tried introducing with mechanics in Halo 4 to 5. I just think they were not well executed, or just had the mentality of, this is cool so let's add it regardless of how well they work off each other. One last thing I'll talk about is the new dialogue from the Banished. It is great. The Tower Grunt is probably a highlight for me, along with a few boss characters. The Jackal's actually talking now is also a nice touch. Regardless, Halo Infinite still does feel like a 343 game, but it still has that spirit classic Halo had, along with the execution of their gameplay goals being well crafted and working well off each other without other things falling short, in return being welcome. If I had any complaints about Infinite's gameplay however, which there are mind you, the first thing that comes into mind is being able to see things clearly. There's a lot of detail and that makes it a bit hard to see weapons on the ground and where to go and hit that next terminal. We have the scan ability, which helps a lot, not just for only this issue, but for people that have a hard time seeing things on an everyday basis. However, I do think having less detail or having the weapons just simply stand out more in the environment like previous Halo games would absolutely help with this. It doesn't help that there are moments where I just don't know what to do, like where the power seats are for a few moments, but I managed to figure it out fairly quickly. I just think some new players might not be able to, and it would be better if the next campaign made it easier for those specific situations. Another complaint I have are vehicles. Vehicles feel snappy almost to a fault. There are moments where I make 360-degree turns when I'm just going straight, and because of how much rocky terrain there is, it's just a bit too sensitive, and making it a little bit less snappy would help in that. Besides that, I think the Banshee is just a bit too fragile. My last complaint though really is how quickly the enemies are able to find me. One aspect of Halo I sort of enjoy is the very brief moments where I can be stealthy, such as the beginning of Halo Combat Evolved's The Truth and Reconciliation map. In this game though, you can't really replicate that, mostly because of the sniper glare, and I guess the Banished must have cleaned their ears out because they can detect me from like a mile away. But those are really my only complaints with Infinite's gameplay. Everything else is exactly what I would have wanted out of a new Halo game, with the old and new being executed wonderfully. I would have liked a bit more variety in my open world levels, but it seems like there will be more campaigns in the future, so I'll make judgments after those come out. A snow biome would be amazing. Just imagine shooting a grapple shot on some slippery ice and then sliding on it. There's a lot 343 have done and could do here, and I'm all here for it. One of the biggest things that makes me come back to playing Halo games is the music. An Infinite soundtrack doesn't disappoint in this aspect. There's a lot of really nice tracks such as Undercover of Night, and I'm really into Finale at the moment. Though, if I had any complaints about the soundtrack, it's that it takes too long for these tracks to get into its main melody. There's a lot of build up in these tracks, and because of the open world nature of Infinite's gameplay and how fast paced things can get, I would find myself not hearing entire tracks in the game because they just take too long to get to where I would recognize it. But otherwise, it's a great soundtrack, and I hope we get more with campaign DLC. As for the story, there are a few things I have to say, which include spoilers, so go to the specific timestamp here or in the description to avoid any if you don't know what actually happens in this game. Are they gone now? Good! Now we can begin. I won't go on about what goes on to every little detail, because at this point you already know what happens in the game, so I'll just go on to how I feel about individual characters. I think 343 really nailed Master Chief in this game. While I can tell they're still going on about stuff like how Master Chief isn't a machine, he's a human shtick, they kept it mostly to body language, which to me is a great example of show don't tell. Ega 216 the pilot, I definitely enjoyed, and I think works well as the audience surrogate for new players. I just think the fact that I cared about a new 343 character that wasn't Lasky felt refreshing. Speaking of Lasky, the audio logs were pretty well thought out on acknowledging Halo 5's story. Though I do think they could have told us more. I assume more information will come out later, so it's not that big of a deal. Escherm was pretty good as well, though I do think they showed him a teeny tiny bit too much in my opinion, but I certainly enjoyed his appearances. Atriox, I don't know much about besides his origins in creating the Banished, and I'm very excited to see his future role in Infinite's new campaigns. The weapon. Well, I like her overall. I do think she gets a bit annoying in certain parts, and I think the fact that I basically predicted her entire arc before the game's launch was a bit meh, but I think over time I'll like her a bit more. I would like an actual name for her that isn't the weapon though. The game kinda left that as a cliffhanger, but I got a few ideas of what it could be, based off a few comments I've seen on other videos. So, basically there's an epic poem called The Song of Roland, and that's where Cortana's name originates from, with Cortana. And also, we have an AI literally named Roland, which helps support this idea. I believe the weapon's name may or may not have a name originating from the Song of Roland because of that. The main two are Durandal and Almace. I don't think I pronounced them correctly, so forgive me on that, but I think a play on those names would suit the weapon perfectly. I just hope her name isn't just Cortana, since that's a bit lazy, and the fact that it kind of implied that in the ending is really worrying, but at the end of the day, it's just a name. Last thing though, I want to talk about the legendary ending. Offensive bias is gonna be in Halo Infinite? If you're not familiar with offensive bias, it's basically an AI that was meant to counter mendicant bias, who was infected by a gravemind to betray the Forerunners, which is a straight parallel to the relationship between Cortana and the weapon. And that's exciting for what's in store in the future of Infinite. Alright, so the timestamp people should be back by now. Overall, I think the story is refreshing from the disaster that was Halo 5. And I'm fairly optimistic and excited for what's next. Ooh, look at the time. Well, that's all for today. Again, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell to know when more videos from me come out. Regardless, I'll see you guys sometime soon. Bye, Pia!